My parents were living rent-free in my duplex. Then they demanded I switch units with my brother because he deserved a better start. They even showed my house to buyers behind my back. They had no idea I had already sold the entire building. It was at my father's 60th birthday dinner when my mother, Teresa, announced, with that rehearsed smile only she could perfect, that they had decided to sell my third-floor apartment. The one I lived in, the one I had personally designed, the place I had called home for 3 years. "Robert, dear," she said, delicately cutting into her cake, "your brother David needs the space. He's 25 and about to get married. You're already 34 and still single. You can move down to the first floor. It's more than enough for just you." I carefully placed my fork onto my plate with calculated precision. My father, George, nodded from his spot at the head of the table, as he always did when my mother made decisions for the whole dysfunctional family. David, sitting across from me with his fiancée, Elizabeth, shot me a look that mixed apology with barely contained satisfaction. "Excuse me?" I said, keeping my voice level. "Did you say sell my apartment?" "Oh, Robert, don't be so dramatic. My apartment is yours, yes. But we live here. We are family. What's yours is ours, isn't it? Besides, we've already shown the place to 3 potential buyers. One offered $250,000. It's an excellent offer." I felt the rage begin to boil in my stomach. But years of dealing with narcissistic parents had taught me to control my reactions. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10. I took a sip of my wine. "Mom," I finally said, "you live on the second floor, rent-free, for 4 years. I live on the third. David can move into the first floor whenever he wants. It's empty." "The first floor is too small," David interjected for the first time. "It only has 2 bedrooms. Elizabeth and I want to have kids soon. We need at least 3 bedrooms, and your place has 4. "Then buy your own apartment," I replied without looking at him. The silence that followed was dense, uncomfortable. My father cleared his throat. "Robert, son, don't be selfish. Your brother is starting his life. You already had your chance to get settled. It's time for you to think about the family, not just yourself." There it was, the same old dynamic. David, the favorite son, the baby of the family, the one who had never paid rent in his life, the one who had never held a job for more than 6 months, the one who was still living off my parents at 25, deserved everything. And I, who had studied civil engineering, who had worked in 3 different countries, who had saved every single penny to buy that entire 4-story building 5 years ago, was expected to concede because we were family. I am not moving," I said simply. "Robert Alexander Miller." My mother used my full name, her favorite intimidation tactic. "Don't be childish. We've already made the decision. The buyer is coming to sign the contract the day after tomorrow. You have the weekend to pack your things and move down to the first floor." "You signed a sales contract for a property that does not belong to you?" I asked, genuinely stunned by the audacity of this family betrayal. "Robert, please." My father leaned forward, using his "let's be reasonable" tone. "We put your name on the papers, obviously. We just need you to sign it. It's for David's sake. He will thank you for the rest of his life." I looked at my brother. David avoided my gaze, focusing intensely on his empty plate. Elizabeth, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable. "And what if I refuse?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Don't be ridiculous." My mother laughed, that sharp sound she always used when she wanted to minimize something serious. "You're not going to refuse. We are your family. What would the neighbors say if they knew you denied your younger brother a decent home?" There was the real reason. Appearances. It was always about how everything looked from the outside. My mother, Teresa Miller, president of the Homeowners Association, organizer of charity events, the woman who never missed an opportunity to brag about her successful sons to anyone who would listen. But only one of those sons truly counted to her. "I understand," I finally said, carefully folding my napkin. "So the buyer is coming the day after tomorrow, right?" "Exactly," my mother smiled, victorious. "At 10 o'clock in the morning. So, please, start packing tomorrow. We want the apartment to look presentable." I got up from the table, kissed my mother on the cheek, as I always did when leaving, shook my father's hand, and left the apartment without another word. I heard my mother comment something about it was time he grew up, as I closed the door. I went up the stairs to my floor, the third, and sat down in my custom-designed living room. I had chosen every lamp, every wall color, every piece of furniture. This space was mine. I had earned it with years of hard work, sacrifice, and careful planning. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in 2 months. "Sam," I said when he answered. "This is Robert Miller, about that offer you made me for the entire building. Is it still on the table?" "Of course," replied my real estate agent. $600,000 for all 4 floors, as we discussed. The buyer is ready to close whenever you are." "Perfect," I said, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "Close the deal. I want the papers signed tomorrow afternoon. And, Sam, one more thing. I need the new owner to be present the day after tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning on the 2nd floor. There's a situation he needs to witness." "Are you sure about this, Robert?" Sam asked, his voice laced with concern. "I know your family lives there." "Precisely because of that," I replied. "Can you do it?" "Sure. I'll send you the documents in an hour." I hung up and poured myself a glass of bourbon. Tomorrow, while my family was showing my apartment to a phantom buyer, I would be signing the real sale of the entire building. The building I had bought completely in my name, with my money, without a single cent of help from anyone. The day after tomorrow, when that buyer arrived, they would meet with a surprise, and my family would learn a lesson about what it truly means to own something. That night, as I strategically packed some personal items to keep up appearances, I heard my parents downstairs celebrating. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. They were celebrating having successfully manipulated me one more time. They had no idea what was coming. My phone vibrated. A text from David. "Bro, I know this is weird, but thanks for understanding. Elizabeth and I really needed this. I owe you one." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the document Sam had just sent. Sales contract, $600,000, immediate possession upon signing, eviction date for current occupants, 15 days. I signed every page electronically, feeling the cold, calculated revenge materialize with every click. Tomorrow would be an interesting day. But the day after tomorrow would be unforgettable. At 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, I went down to the 2nd floor with a box of donuts and coffee, as if nothing had changed. My mother was frantically tidying the living room, moving cushions and adjusting curtains. "Robert, good thing you came," she said without looking up. "Help me move this couch. I need the place to look more spacious for when the buyer comes tomorrow." "Sure, Mom," I replied, placing the coffee on the table. "Did you already talk to David about moving up to the 3rd floor?" "Oh, son, don't worry about that. Elizabeth is already measuring for the curtains she'll need. They are going to make some beautiful changes in the 3rd floor apartment. They want to paint everything white and renovate the kitchen." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept the smile. Renovate my kitchen? That kitchen cost me $40,000 2 years ago. Well, now it will be David's. My father appeared from the hallway, newspaper under his arm. Tastes change, son. Besides, it's an investment in your brother's future. You should be proud to contribute to the welfare of the dysfunctional family. That word, contribute, sounded particularly ironic coming from a man who hadn't contributed a single dollar to the building's maintenance in 4 years. Not water, not electricity, not gas, nor the repairs that I had religiously paid every month. Speaking of contributions, I said carefully, did you ever think about paying some rent? I mean, since you've been living here for 4 years. The silence that followed was heavy. My mother stopped straightening the cushions and looked at me as if I had said something obscene. Rent, she said. To your own parents? Robert, I can't believe you're so ungrateful. We raised you, we gave you everything, and now you talk about money as if we were strangers. I was just saying no. My father raised his hand, cutting me off. I don't want to hear this. We made an enormous sacrifice by moving here to be close to you, to support you. And this is how you thank us. I bit my tongue. The sacrifice they spoke of had been leaving their rented 2-bedroom apartment because I, naively, had offered them the 2nd floor temporarily when they said they needed a bigger place. That was 4 years ago. The temporary became permanent, and I became the villain for even mentioning a formal arrangement. All right, I finally said. Let's forget it. That's what I like. My mother returned to her task of arranging the living room. Now go up to the 3rd floor and make sure it's presentable. We want David and Elizabeth to be able to visualize their new home without your stuff everywhere. I went up the stairs feeling like a stranger in my own property. In my apartment, I found Elizabeth measuring the windows with a tape measure, while David photographed every corner with his phone. Oh, Robert. Elizabeth was startled to see me. I hope you don't mind. We're just, planning. Planning, I repeated. In my apartment, which is still mine, technically. And David put his phone away. But you know how things are. Mom and Dad already decided. It's easier if you just go with it, brother. Besides, the 1st floor isn't that bad. It's cozy. It's half the size of this one, I said, my patience starting to wear thin. Well, you don't need that much space. Elizabeth intervened with that sweet voice she used when she wanted to seem reasonable. You don't have a family. We're going to have children. It's logical that we should have the bigger apartment. There it was again. That twisted logic of narcissistic parents and their favorite children. As if my life, my needs, my accomplishments didn't matter because I had chosen to focus on my career instead of getting married young like David. You know what? I said, heading to my room. Do whatever you want. Take all the measurements you need. Thanks, Robert. David patted my shoulder with false enthusiasm. I knew you would understand. You're the best, brother. I closed my bedroom door and took out my phone. A text from Sam. All set. The buyer signs at 2 o'clock. Confirming he'll be present tomorrow at 10 o'clock? Confirmed, I wrote back. And make sure he brings the original property documents. I want everything to be official. I packed a few more things into boxes, objects of sentimental value that I didn't want damaged in the inevitable chaos that was coming. Photographs from my travels, gifts from colleagues, the watch I had bought myself when I landed my first big job. The things that really mattered. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was at Sam's office signing the last document. The buyer, Mr. Richard Mendez, an entrepreneur in his 50s, was reviewing the papers with his lawyer. Are you sure about this, Engineer Miller? Mr. Mendez asked. Sam mentioned your family lives in the building. Completely sure, I replied without hesitation. In fact, I need to ask you a favor. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, my parents will be showing one of the apartments to a supposed buyer. A buyer who doesn't exist because they have no authority to sell anything. I would like you to be present to clarify the situation." Mr. Mendez studied me for a moment. Then he smiled slightly. "I understand. A lesson in ownership, shall we say?" "Exactly." We signed. The money was transferred. At that moment, I ceased to be the owner of the building where my dysfunctional family lived. Now, I was simply another tenant, and one who would soon move to a place where I wouldn't have to deal with constant manipulation and family betrayal. That night, during dinner on the second floor, my mother was euphoric. "The buyer confirmed for tomorrow at 10 o'clock, she announced, pouring herself more wine. "He said he would bring the certified check. $250,000, Robert. With that, David can remodel the entire apartment to his taste." "You're going to remodel with my money?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Oh, don't be like that," my mother waved her glass. "It's a family investment. Besides, you earn well. You can save up some more. David is just starting out. He needs these things." David nodded, drinking his beer as if all this were perfectly normal, as if they weren't literally stealing my home. "And the first floor?" I asked. "When do you expect me to move out?" "Next week would be ideal," my father replied. "We want David and Elizabeth to get settled before their wedding next month. That way they can start their marriage in their own space." "Their own space?" I repeated slowly. "In my former apartment, which I am being forced to give up." "Nobody is forcing you, Robert." My mother frowned. "You are choosing to be part of this family. If you were really as selfish as you're sounding right now, you could refuse, but I know deep down you're a good son, a good brother." The manipulation was so obvious, so practiced, that I almost admired the skill. Almost. "You're right," I said, getting up from the table. "I am choosing, and tomorrow you will see exactly what I choose." "What does that mean?" My father looked at me with suspicion. "Nothing, Dad. Just that I accept reality. Tomorrow, when that buyer comes, everything will be very clear." I went up to my apartment before they could ask any more questions. My phone rang. "Sam here, Robert. Mr. Mendez wants you to know he'll arrive at 9:45 tomorrow, 10 minutes before your parents' supposed buyer. He says it will be more dramatic that way." I smiled for the first time in days. "Perfect. Tell him I'll be waiting in my apartment. When the time comes, I'll go down with him." "Are you really sure about this?" Sam asked one last time. "Once you do this, there's no turning back." "Sam," I said, looking around my apartment for the last time as its owner, "there's been no turning back for 4 years. I'm just realizing it now." I hung up and made myself a drink. Tomorrow, at 10 o'clock in the morning, my family would learn the difference between owning something and simply living on someone else's property. And I would learn if it was possible to feel vengeance and liberation at the same time. The morning of the decisive day dawned with a clear sky that brutally contrasted with the storm that was about to break. I woke up at 7 o'clock, took a calm shower, put on my best gray suit, and had coffee while reviewing all the sale documents one more time. $600,000. Transferred. Irrevocable. The building was no longer mine. At 9:30, my mother knocked on my door with a frantic energy. "Robert, are you presentable? The buyer arrives in 30 minutes. I need you to come down and help your father finish tidying the living room. And please, when he arrives, be polite. Don't ruin this with your comments." "Don't worry, Mom," I replied, adjusting my tie. "I won't say anything inappropriate. I promise." She seemed satisfied with that answer and ran downstairs, yelling at my father about some misplaced cushions. David and Elizabeth arrived 10 minutes later, she in a new dress and he with a satisfied smile that churned my stomach. "Big day, huh, brother?" David winked at me as he went up to the 3rd floor. "Soon all this will officially be ours." I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at my watch. 9:45. Mr. Mendez should be arriving any minute. The doorbell rang at exactly 9:46. I went down the stairs with deliberate calm and opened the door before my parents could get there. There was Richard Mendez, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, accompanied by his lawyer and Sam, my real estate agent. "Good morning, Engineer Miller." Mr. Mendez extended his hand. "Good morning, Mr. Mendez," I replied, shaking it firmly. "Thank you for coming. Please come in." My mother appeared behind me, her expression confused. "Robert, who are these people? The buyer shouldn't arrive until 10 o'clock. "Mom, Dad," I said, turning to them with a calm that I had mentally rehearsed all night. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Richard Mendez, the new owner of this building." The silence that followed was absolute. My father blinked several times, as if he hadn't understood the words. My mother stood motionless, her mouth slightly open. "What? What did you say?" my father finally articulated. "Mr. Mendez bought this building yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon," I explained, taking a copy of the sales contract from my inside pocket. "All 4 floors for $600,000. Everything is here, signed, sealed, and legally registered." David ran down the stairs. "What are you talking about?" "Your brother sold the building," Mr. Mendez intervened with a professional voice, which was his absolute right, considering he was the sole registered owner. "This is a joke." My mother laughed nervously. "Robert, stop playing around. This isn't funny. The real buyer will be here any minute." "Mom," I said softly, "there is no other buyer. There never was. You cannot sell what does not belong to you. I was the owner of this building. Now Mr. Mendez is." "Liar!" my father shouted, his face reddening dangerously. "We put the apartment up for sale. We had a buyer. They were going to pay us $250,000. "You showed my apartment without my permission," I replied, my voice remaining firm. "You falsified sales documents." "That is fraud, Dad. I could sue you if I wanted to." Elizabeth clung to David's arm, her eyes wide. David, for the first time since I had known him, looked genuinely scared. Wait. David raised his hands. "There must be a misunderstanding. Robert, we're family. You can't do this. Mom and Dad live here. I was going to live here. We had plans." "You had plans with my property," I corrected, "without consulting me, without my consent. You decided for me that I should move to the first floor, that I should give up my home, that I should sacrifice myself once again for the favorite son of the family." "Don't say that." My mother pointed a trembling finger at me. "We have never had favorites. We love both our sons equally." "Really?" The rage contained for years began to leak into my voice. "How much did you pay for my college tuition, Mom?" "0. I worked 3 jobs and took out student loans that I finished paying off 2 years ago. How much did you pay for David's college?" "Everything. Full degree plus his apartment, plus his car, plus his study trips to Europe." "That was different," my father tried to defend. "David needed support. You were always more independent." "Independent," I repeated bitterly. "Code for, you can manage on your own, because we don't care about you as much." "How many times did you go to my project presentations in college?" "None." "How many of David's soccer games did you attend?" "All of them." "How much rent have you paid in these 4 years living on my property?" "Nothing. Not $1. "We're your parents," my mother cried, tears starting to stream down her cheeks. "You're supposed to take care of us." "And you were supposed to treat me with respect," I countered. "Not as an ATM or an obstacle to your spoiled son's plans." Mr. Mendez cleared his throat gently. "I regret interrupting this family discussion, but we need to talk about the eviction terms. According to the law, you have 15 days to vacate the premises." He looked at my father directly. However, I am willing to extend that to 30 days if you need it. I am a reasonable man. Eviction? My mother almost collapsed. My father had to hold her up. Are you kicking us out of our own home? It was not your home, ma'am. Mr. Mendez's lawyer spoke for the first time, his tone polite but firm. It never was. You were guests on your son's property. Guests who, I understand, never paid rent and tried to illegally sell an apartment that did not belong to them. David slumped onto the couch, his face completely white. Elizabeth was looking at him with an expression that mixed shock and what appeared to be disappointment. She probably just realized that her future husband was not the son of a wealthy family she had believed him to be. Robert? My father approached me, his voice cracking. Please don't do this. We're your dysfunctional family. Your blood. You can't leave us on the street. I am not leaving you on the street, I said, feeling something akin to pain mixing with a vengeance. You have 30 days to find another place. And Dad, you have a job. Mom, you get your pension. David, well, I guess it's time for you to finally hold a job for more than 6 months. You have resources. You just need to use them instead of depending on me. And you? My mother asked through sobs. What are you going to do? I'm moving, I replied simply. I already found an apartment downtown. Smaller than this one, but mine. Truly mine. Without manipulative family living beneath me, planning how to take away what I built. I can't believe you're doing this to us. David finally spoke, his voice filled with a rage he had never directed at me before. After everything we've done for you. Everything they've done for me? I laughed humorlessly. David, did you ever wonder who paid the electricity for this building for 4 years? The water? The gas? The repairs when the heat broke last winter? When we needed an exterminator? The property taxes? Me. All me. While you lived for free with Mom and Dad, planning to steal my home. We weren't going to steal anything from you. David stood up. You were going to move to the first floor. You were still living in the building. In the smallest apartment you considered sufficient for someone like me, I corrected. Someone who doesn't have a family. Someone whose life apparently doesn't matter as much as the favorite son's. Mr. Mendez intervened again. Ladies and gentlemen, I think my lawyer can stay to discuss the eviction details. Engineer Miller, can we speak for a moment in private? I nodded, and we stepped out into the hallway. Once we were alone, Mr. Mendez looked at me with something that seemed like respect. That was difficult to witness, he said. But necessary, I suppose. I should have done it 4 years ago, I admitted, feeling the adrenaline start to dissipate, leaving a strange mix of relief and sadness. Thank you for being here. One question. Mr. Mendez tilted his head. Is the first floor truly vacant? Yes, completely. Would you consider renting it to me for 6 months? I have a son who just got a job in this city. Market price, of course. Formal contract. Everything legal. For the first time in days, I genuinely smiled. I would love to. Inside, I could hear my mother's sobs, my father's furious voice demanding to speak with a lawyer, David's pleas. I could hear the world they had built on my back crumbling. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to rush in and fix it. The next 3 days were absolute chaos. My mother called every hour, alternating between heartbreaking pleas and venomous attacks. My father left exactly 17 voicemails, each one more threatening than the last, talking about lawyers, lawsuits, and how I would pay for this massive family betrayal. David simply stopped talking to me. But Elizabeth, surprisingly, did call. Robert? She called me on Tuesday night, her voice tense. I need you to know something. David and I are calling off the wedding. I remained silent, processing. When I found out that he owned nothing, that everything was yours, that his parents basically lived off your generosity, I couldn't go through with it. He lied to me about his financial situation. He told me the building was the family's. But it turns out the family was just you holding everything up. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I said, and I meant it. Don't be sorry. You saved me from making a huge mistake. David is 35 and has never held a stable job because he always knew his narcissistic parents would rescue him. And if they couldn't, you would. Thank you for opening my eyes. After hanging up, I poured myself a bourbon and looked out the window of my new temporary apartment at a hotel. I had left the building the day after the confrontation, taking only the essentials. Mr. Mendez had been incredibly understanding, even helping me with the move. On Thursday, my father showed up at my job. He managed to get past the reception desk by saying it was a family emergency. My assistant, Patricia, warned me with a worried look. Tell him to come up, I sighed. My father entered my office looking gaunt, with deep dark circles under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. I hadn't seen him like this since his business went bankrupt years ago. Robert, he began without preamble, you have to reverse this. You can buy the building back. I know you can. You have that money now. Dad, sit down. I pointed to the chair across from my desk. I don't want to sit down. I want you to fix the mess you created. Your mother hasn't slept in 3 days. David is devastated. Elizabeth left him, all because of your selfish revenge. My revenge, I repeated slowly. It started when you decided to sell my property without my consent. When you treated me like an obstacle to David's plans. When you assumed I would just give in, because I always do. You're our oldest son. You're supposed to take care of your younger brother. David is 25, Dad. He's not a child. And I am not his designated provider for the rest of his life. My father sank into the chair. Finally. For a moment, he looked much older than his 60 years. How did we get here? He murmured, more to himself than to me. We got here, I said, my voice softer now. Because you never really saw me. You never saw my work, my sacrifices, my accomplishments. You only saw what I could do for David. When I bought that building 5 years ago, do you know what you said? My father looked at me with tired eyes. You said, "That's great. Now David will have a place to live when he moves out of the house." You didn't even congratulate me. Your first reaction was how my achievement could benefit your favorite son. I never, he started, but stopped. We both knew it was a lie. Dad, I continued, for 4 years I paid for everything. The electricity, the water, the gas, the maintenance, the taxes. Almost $50,000 annually. $200,000 in total. Did you ever say thank you? Did you ever acknowledge what I was doing? The silence was his answer. And when I finally had the courage to mention perhaps paying some rent, Mom called me ungrateful. She told me I should feel honored to be able to support my dysfunctional family. Those were her exact words. Your mother was upset. Mom is always upset when I don't do exactly what she wants. My voice rose despite my attempts to keep it controlled. And you always support her. Always. Even when you are objectively wrong. My father rubbed his face with his hands. What do you want us to do, Robert? What do you need to hear? Nothing, I answered honestly. I don't need anything from you anymore. That's the part you don't understand. For years I sought your approval, your recognition, something to indicate that you cared, but not anymore. Now I just want to live my life without being the family bank or David's backup plan. You're punishing us for loving you less than your brother, my father said softly. And for the first time, he didn't deny it. The admission hit me like a physical punch. Years of suspicion confirmed in one simple sentence. Why? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What did I do wrong? Nothing. My father looked away. You didn't do anything wrong. You were too good at everything, too independent. David always needed more help, more attention, and your mother. She always had a soft spot for him. I simply followed her lead to keep the peace. So you sacrificed your relationship with me to keep the peace with Mom and David. I'm sorry, he said. And to my surprise, it seemed genuine. I never thought it would come to this. I thought you would always be there, that you would always understand. I was always there, Dad, until you tried to take the last thing I had left. My home, the place I built with my own effort. My father stood up slowly. They're being evicted in 12 days. Your mother is looking for apartments, but everything is very expensive. David moved back in with us because he can't afford a place alone. Dad, I said, stopping him before he reached the door. There's a 2-bedroom apartment available in the building on Main Street. $600 a month. It's small, but it's in good condition. Call Mrs. Gutierrez, the property manager. Mention my name. She'll give them priority. My father looked at me with something that might have been gratitude or surprise. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, I don't want you to end up on the street. But Dad, this is the last time I intervene. After this, you are on your own. You need to learn to live without using my money as your safety net. And us? He asked. You and me? Your mother, David? Is there any chance of fixing this? Honestly, I don't know. Right now, I need distance. I need to heal from years of feeling less important than my brother, of being treated as a means to an end instead of a son. My father nodded slowly and left without saying anything else. On Saturday, exactly 1 week after the confrontation, I received a text from David. It was long, full of typos, clearly written in an emotional state. Robert, I know I screwed up everything. Mom and Dad spoiled me my whole life, and I allowed it. I never had to work hard because I knew there was always someone who would rescue me. Elizabeth left me, and she's right. I'm a parasite, a favorite son who never grew up. I see that now. I'm not asking you to forgive me, just to know that I finally understand what you did to us. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. And we needed it. All 3 of us needed it. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I drove to the building that was no longer mine. Mr. Mendez was there, overseeing some minor renovations. Engineer Miller, he greeted me. How are you? Better, I replied honestly. Can I ask you something? Why did you buy this building? You could have gotten something bigger, more modern. Mr. Mendez smiled. Because you reminded me of my son. He also has a dysfunctional family who only sees him as a resource. When Sam told me your situation, I saw an opportunity to do some good, to help someone break free. Thank you, I said simply. You're welcome. And Robert, your family is moving out next Tuesday. I've been here supervising, and I think they're finally starting to understand. As I walked away from the building for the last time as its former owner, I felt something strange. It wasn't exactly happiness, nor full satisfaction. It was something more akin to liberation, as if a burden I had carried for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. The revenge had been sweet, no doubt. But the real victory was more subtle. I had finally set boundaries. I had finally chosen myself. The moving day arrived with a persistent rain that seemed appropriate for the occasion. I didn't go to the building. I didn't need to see them packing their lives and facing the consequences of years of manipulation and favoritism. Mr. Mendez sent me a message at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All set. They left an hour ago. 3 weeks later, I was signing the lease for my new apartment downtown. It was smaller than my old home, yeah, but every inch was genuinely mine. No narcissistic parents a floor below. No spoiled brother waiting to inherit what I built. Just me. My new life was starting to take shape. I had blocked my mother's and father's numbers after the 10th message full of reproaches. David had tried to visit me at work 2 more times, but Patricia had received clear instructions not to allow him access. It was my Aunt Carol, my father's younger sister, who finally contacted me by email. She had always been the black sheep of the Miller family, precisely because she had refused to participate in the dysfunctional family dynamic that defined my branch of the family. "Robert," she wrote, "I know you probably don't want to hear anything about the family right now, but I thought you should know a few things. Your mother had a nervous breakdown last week, not over losing the apartment, but because all her social club friends found out the truth. They found out she was living for free on her son's property, that she tried to sell something that didn't belong to her, and that her successful son was actually you, not David. Her reputation is ruined." I read the email without feeling the guilt I expected. Instead, I felt something more akin to poetic justice. "Your father," Aunt Carol continued, "had to take out a loan for the deposit on the new apartment. He's working overtime for the first time in years. David got a full-time job at a logistics company. He doesn't like it, but he needs the money. I think it's the first time in his life he understands what it means to support himself." I replied briefly, thanking her for keeping me informed, but making it clear I wasn't ready for reconciliation. 1 month after the eviction, my mother appeared at my new apartment. I don't know how she got the address, probably through some relative. The doorbell rang one Saturday morning, and when I opened the door, I almost didn't recognize her. She had lost weight, her hair was badly dyed, and her eyes had that look of someone who has faced real consequences for the first time. "Robert," her voice was small, nothing like the authoritative tone I was used to. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch as if she was afraid of getting too comfortable. "I came to tell you that you were right," she began without preamble. "About everything. Your father and I failed you. We spoiled David into a useless adult. We used you as our financial safety net without ever acknowledging it. And when you finally made a decision to protect yourself, we called you selfish." I crossed my arms and waited. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she continued, tears beginning to slide down her cheeks. "But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see the years we made you feel less important than your brother. I see how we took advantage of your generosity until there was nothing left. And I see that you deserved much better than what we gave you." "Why now, Mom?" I asked. "Why this revelation now and not when I told you a month ago?" "Because I lost everything," she admitted. "My friends, my reputation, the respect of the community. Your Aunt Carol told me something I couldn't ignore. She said, 'Teresa, you treated your son like an ATM, and now you're surprised he closed the account.' And she was right." We were silent for a long moment. "David is working," she finally continued. "He hates his job, but he's doing it. Your father is working double, and I got a part-time job at a flower shop. It's humiliating at my age, but we need the money. I didn't come here looking for your pity, I said firmly. I know. I came to tell you that I finally understand what you tried to teach us. That we couldn't keep living off you. That David needed to grow up. That we had to face our own responsibilities. She stood up to leave, wiping her tears with a crumpled tissue. Is there any chance, she asked at the door, that you might forgive us someday? Not now, I understand. But someday? Mom, I said after carefully considering my words. Forgiveness requires real change, not just pretty words said after losing everything. When I see that you can support yourselves for a full year, without asking me for money, without manipulation, without treating me like the second-class favorite son, then maybe we can talk. She nodded, accepting the terms without arguing. Before leaving, she turned one last time. Your father says it was you who got them that apartment on Main Street, that you called the manager. It was the right thing to do, I replied. But that doesn't mean things go back to how they were. I know, she whispered. Thank you anyway. After she left, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. The building that had been my home was 20 minutes away, but it felt like another life. A life where I was the silent provider, the responsible son who always gave in, the older brother who always sacrificed. That version of me no longer existed. My phone vibrated, a text from David. I just cashed my first full paycheck. It feels weird to be proud of something I earned myself. I finally understand why you never wanted to give us more money. Thanks, brother, for not rescuing me this time. I didn't reply, but I saved the message. The revenge had been satisfying, but the real victory was in this. My dysfunctional family was finally learning to stand on its own. David was growing up at 25. My parents were facing their financial reality, and I, for the first time in my adult life, was living free from the burden of being everyone's savior. Would there be reconciliation someday? Maybe. But only if they showed real change. Meanwhile, I had my own life to build, a life where no one could take what was mine, where my accomplishments were recognized, where I wasn't just the backup favorite son. I was simply Robert, and that was more than enough. 6 months after selling the building, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. Not just materially, although the $600,000 had allowed me to invest wisely and secure my financial future. The most significant change was internal. I had started therapy 3 months ago. My therapist, Dr. Ramirez, helped me understand patterns that I had normalized for years. You were parentified, she explained in one session. They made you the emotional and financial parent of your family when they should have been taking care of you. Those words unlocked something in me. Years of buried resentment, ignored needs, love conditioned on my usefulness. It wasn't easy to process, but it was necessary. My career flourished without the constant financial worry of supporting 3 adults, in addition to myself. I accepted an international project in Texas that I had previously declined because I didn't want to leave my family without their safety net. 3 months in Dallas gave me perspective on how small I had made my world to accommodate people who never appreciated it. It was there I met Vanessa, a Texan architect working on the same project. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner, that turned into walking the city until sunrise, talking about everything and nothing. My family is complicated too, she confessed one night while we were having dinner at her favorite diner. But I learned years ago that you can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. That phrase stuck with me. Back in the Northeast, I maintained minimal contact with my family. David sent me monthly updates, not asking for anything, just sharing his progress. He had been promoted at his job. He was saving for his own apartment. He had started paying his own bills. "It's exhausting," he wrote in one message, "being responsible for myself. I don't know how you did it for so many years while also supporting us." My father called on my 35th birthday. It was a brief, awkward conversation, but with no hidden requests for money or favors. Just, "Happy birthday and hope you're doing well." Small steps. My mother took longer to find her new normal. Aunt Carol told me she had started her own small floral arrangement business from home. She didn't earn much, but it was hers. For the first time in her life, she had something she had built herself, not something she had obtained through my father or me. Mr. Mendez and I had become unlikely friends. We had dinner occasionally, and he advised me on investments. His son Andrew had moved into the first floor of the building and, according to Richard, was thriving. "I told him your story," Richard told me during one of our dinners. "I told him that sometimes loving your family means letting them face the consequences of their actions. That constantly rescuing people doesn't help them, it incapacitates them." 1 year after the eviction, I received an unexpected invitation. David was getting married, not to Elizabeth, but to a woman named Andrea, whom he had met at his job. The invitation came with a handwritten note. "Robert, I know I have no right to ask you this after everything, but I would like you to be at my wedding, not as the older brother who rescues us, but simply as my brother. Andrea knows the whole story. She knows who I was and who I'm trying to be now. If you decide not to come, I understand, but I hope you do. David." I went. Not out of obligation, but because I saw real evidence of change. The wedding was modest, in a public park with fewer than 50 guests. There was no ostentatious display that Elizabeth had planned. David paid for everything himself. He made that very clear when I arrived. "I saved up for 8 months," he told me with genuine pride. "It's small compared to what Elizabeth wanted. But it's mine, ours." My mother cried during the ceremony. But they were different tears than I remembered. Not of manipulation or drama, but of something more genuine. When she saw me, she approached cautiously. "You look good, son," she said simply. "Happy I am," I replied honestly. "We've gone a full year without asking you for anything," she continued. "Like you said, a year supporting ourselves. Does that count for something?" I looked at my mother, truly looked at her, and saw something I had never seen before. Humility, consequence, real growth. "Yes, Mom, it counts." It didn't mean everything was forgiven or that we would return to the previous normal. That normal had been dysfunctional. But it meant that perhaps in time we could build something new, something healthier. My father approached while the reception was in full swing. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, he pulled me into an awkward hug. "You did the right thing," he murmured. "It took me a year to admit it, but you did. You saved us from ourselves." Vanessa had come to the wedding with me. She watched everything with interest, knowing the complete story. When we danced later, she whispered in my ear. "Your family has changed," she said. "It shows." "Do you think so?" I asked. "Yes, but you changed more. You look free." She was right. The burden of being the backup favorite son, the silent provider, the perpetual rescuer, had evaporated. In its place was something lighter, the freedom to simply be myself. Had my family learned their lesson? Yes, the hardest way possible. Was our relationship completely repaired? No, and it probably never would be entirely. Some cracks are too deep to be completely erased. But we had found a new balance, one based on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and individual responsibility, They no longer saw me as their financial emergency plan, and I no longer felt obligated to rescue them from every consequence. David approached at the end of the night, clearly nervous. "Robert, do you think we can ever have a normal brotherly relationship? Without all the baggage from the past?" I thought about it carefully. "I don't know if we can erase the past, David, but I think we can build something better going forward if we both keep working on it." He nodded, relieved. "That's all I can ask for." As Vanessa and I drove back home that night, I reflected on the year that had passed. I had lost a building, but gained my freedom. I had lost the dysfunctional version of my family, but gained the possibility of a healthier relationship. I had lost my role as savior, but gained my identity as an individual. The revenge had been sweet in the moment. Seeing my parents' faces when they realized the building was no longer mine. Seeing David finally face real consequences. All of that had brought momentary satisfaction. But the real victory was this: living a life where no one could take advantage of me, where my accomplishments were mine, where my generosity was a choice, not an obligation. And as I looked toward the future, with Vanessa by my side and my family finally learning to stand on their own, I realized that I had done more than sell a building. I had bought my freedom. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own peace of mind? Have you been the backup favorite child in your family? I'd love to know your opinion in the comments. If this story made you reflect on your own family relationships, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for joining me until the end of this story.